Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome to the Home Ed workshop on high school transcripts. We are so excited to have Michelle Younkman here, who's come, and this is your youngest is a senior this year, right? Yes. And she is coming to share all of her wisdom. I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction, and then she's going to come and take it away. Michelle said she started homeschooling back in 2005 when they lived in Dallas. And she's graduated too, so we know she has experience and expertise, because that's a big feat. I'm looking at this kind of daunting. But they graduated from Home Ed, the older two, correct? And then your youngest is going to graduate this spring with Home Ed. She said in her text to me, she said, I have had zero teaching experience and I never thought I would homeschool. But God has a sense of humor. You know, I'm sure some of us can relate to that. And she started homeschooling. And then in 2011, God brought the perfect job where she could homeschool in the morning, and then in the afternoon she just worked from home, which was great. She is currently the executive of Christian Music Broadcasters, which occupies more than just her afternoons now. But thank God for co-ops. That's for Michelle. So thank you so much for coming and joining us. There might be some more people that are going to come in late, so just ignore them as they come in, or welcome them if you want to. And I'm glad we could live stream this. This will be available on our Facebook members only page for Home Ed. So if you want to go back and watch something because you missed it, you can do that then. But all right, come on up. Everyone give her a warm welcome.
How's everybody tonight? Good. Kudos to you guys for feeling like you can be here and learn more about what the heck you're doing with your kids, right? Because homeschooling doesn't come with a manual, unless I missed the boat. You guys got the manual. As she said, I'm Michelle Younkman, and I said I would never homeschool. My mom was like, never say never. And I'm like, no, I can say never. And so now she's laughing, and so is the Lord. So, when we lived in Dallas and we started there, I just want to share that in Texas, kindergarten, that's not a required grade. Like, you don't have to put your kid in kindergarten. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to try it this year and see, and if I fail, we haven't lost too much. So then we ended up moving to Little Rock, and we loved it so much, and it really caused our family just to have a lot more family time. So this was really what worked for our family, and we are just excited to kind of share more about what we've learned along the way, and hopefully it will help you guys in what you're doing. And as she said, my youngest is a senior this year. My oldest is 23. He's a senior at John Brown University. So when he was in high school with Home Ed, I was the senior class mom. So I learned so much through that process, but I for sure don't want to claim everything by any means. So I know like Tammy and Jennifer, like they're going to be here to make sure, like if we have questions, they're here to answer them too. And I know what it's like to be in your shoes. And I remember coming to these type of sessions. Holly Oliver and Martha Schmidt were the two gurus that I got to glean from and just learn from their wise counsel. And that is really what got me through. And so I love that now it's really like my turn to try to give back because somebody really invested in me. So my goal really with our time together is just to go over these guidelines so that you don't feel overwhelmed. Because at the end of the day, there's so many other things to take our attention that require us maybe to be overwhelmed, but this is something maybe that we can reduce that a little bit. So, okay, I want to find out like how many freshman kids, or where are your kids? Freshmen, okay, what about sophomores and juniors? Okay, and then seniors? Okay, awesome. The first thing that I want you guys to take note of, hopefully everybody got a little handout that says high school, homeschooling through high school. One of the things that I want you to write down and make like big and bold is that you are in charge. Nobody else is in charge of your kids but you. That can be good and that can be bad, right? Because you're going to have to figure out some things, and that's why I love Home Ed and I love the heart behind it, to help us figure things out. But at the end of the day, you guys are in charge. The overwhelming part sometimes can be college. Like that seems so massive to try to understand what are we going to do with our kids when it comes to college, or all of the different opportunities we don't want them to miss out on. Even like I remember before we even started homeschooling, when we lived in Dallas, we had a babysitter that was homeschooled, and she was the most responsible person and relatable girl we had ever met. And my husband was like, I want our kids to be like that, where she could have a conversation with us and not feel like, okay, like inferior to us by any means, but just really sit there and have a conversation. And so that was one of the ways for us that God used us to go through homeschooling, and that was an option. All right, we're going to start with grades. So you're going to start keeping grades with your students freshman year. So if you're the seniors that are in the room, you guys have been probably doing this throughout the year. It's a lot easier to keep up with it if you start when they're a freshman. I know because I did it with my senior, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't even remember what he got his freshman year of biology, right? And so if you just keep note of that, you're not going to need a transcript right away. We're going to talk about transcripts a little later on, but you are in charge of your students' grades. Now, let's say your child goes to Hope Co-op, and your son gets a B in algebra. And you're like, oh man, I really want him to get an A in this class. So you might decide, you know what, over the summer, I'm going to have him go through like Khan Academy online and take some algebra lessons. Maybe he takes some tests and he earns an A through that. Then you have the freedom to go ahead and say, I'm not going to give him a B in that class. I'm going to give him an A because he's worked over and above and he's learned the concepts, and I can feel like I can adequately do that. And that's important to know that you have that freedom and flexibility. But we're going to talk more about keeping up with those and transcripts a little later on, but just knowing the different grades, it's your responsibility to keep up with that. The PSAT, there's been a lot of changes. Does anybody know what the PSAT is for? Yeah, exactly. Nobody knows. And so it's basically for your student, if you want them to get the National Merit Scholarship. So it's a pretty hard scholarship to get. But if you feel like, hey, I want to give my student a chance, then this is a great opportunity. Starting this fall, so right now, they're not offering a paper version. So they used to do it like the ACT, where you would sit down and they would write it all out. But now it's all in a digital format at the testing center. So while that's great, they've shortened it. It's 2 hours, a little over 2 hours. There's only 98 questions. But the problem is that fewer places are offering that. So when I last did this presentation, Little Rock Christian was offering, any homeschooler could come and be a part of it. And so is Robinson. Well, now Little Rock Christian, because it's all digital, they no longer offer that to homeschoolers. But as you can see here, there is an opportunity with Robinson to be able to do that if you are in the Robinson High School district. So this address here, Crystal, you can reach out to her and ask if you can sign up your student, your child, to be a part of the PSAT. If you live outside of that district, then you just need to Google the College Board's PSAT. Just Google that and you'll be able to find something that's in your district for you to be able to participate. It's always in October, and you can start it in 10th grade, but you can only take it 10th and 11th grade years. So it's not, you can't take it your senior year. If you pass that time, then there's probably some other things that you could take. But you can take both years if you wanted to. We did that with my oldest, just so that he could feel it out the first year, because it didn't really matter his 10th grade year. And then he did his 11th grade year, and he didn't qualify. So I knew if he didn't qualify, my others weren't going to qualify. So we only did it one time, but you can take it both years. As we're going along, if you guys have questions, don't hesitate to throw it out, okay? Feel free to do that. ACT, anybody's kids take ACT yet? Mm-hmm. Okay. That can seem very overwhelming, but the great news is that they can take the test up to 12 times. And they've really kind of come such a long way since we started taking ACT. But you can see here's some dates on here that's being offered. It's offered 7 times a year. This deadline to register, that's not the drop dead date. But this is the first deadline. You'll have to pay more. If you miss that drop deadline, too bad. There's no grace there, and I learned that the hard way. So, but you can take the late registration for that. So there's 4 sections of the ACT. There's English, there's math, reading, and science. Now don't let them rope you in and try to charge you for their writing, because nobody takes the writing. For some reason they offer it on there, but it's not necessary. I've never, with my 2 kids that are in college, they never had the need to be able to take the writing part of it. So what we learned kind of also the hard way is that, like, hey, this time when my son takes the test, I really want him to just focus on science and really have them study science. And then the next time he takes it, it's like, hey, we're just going to focus on math, because it won't hurt him at all, because they do what's called a super score. So a super score is where they're going to take the highest score of every test that you've taken, and that is your final score. Colleges take super scores, home ed takes super scores, so that's the score that you would be looking at trying to do for your student. I tried to find out some more information, because at one point in time, the ACT before COVID was talking about just offering each individual section at a time, so that you didn't have to go and spend all that time going and taking the rest of the tests. But they kind of pulled back on that. I did some research to find out what they were going to do, but I couldn't find anything on that. But the average score on the ACT is a 21. I was kind of surprised by that. 36 is the highest that you can get, but according to the ACT website, 21 is the average. Test takes about 3 hours, and so it's just important for your student to know that, hey, this is not your one chance only. Like, you've got multiple opportunities, because it's such a stressful thing to do. They are trying to make the tests go digital, but for right now, the tests are all on paper. But they're doing some beta testing on the digital. It's not Little Rock yet, but that doesn't mean it won't be in the next couple of years. There's some ways for you guys to prepare for the ACT. The ACT website has different places. I know here in Little Rock, there's the College Prep Coach. Has anybody used the College Prep Coach? Did you like it? Yeah? Hit or miss? Yeah. So we did it again with our first 2 kids. My 3rd child, I called him like 100 times and he never called me back. But my first 2, the great thing about it was that you can go in and you pay a fee. So right now on his website it's $775. He did at one point in time, I don't know if you guys got the home ed or the home educators discount, and that's what we got, where we didn't have to pay their rack room price. He gave us a discount. I think he is a homeschool dad at one point in time, so he has a heart for homeschoolers. So that was great. So the great thing too was that it's offered once a week. My child can take it once a week, but it's offered every night of the week. So I think it may be Sunday, or Monday through Thursday. This week he's talking about science every day that week. So if they can't go on Monday because they work, they can go on Tuesday. And the next week it's the same. It's the next level. So the next week it could be on math, and he's covering that subject every day that week. So the great thing is that if you take it from him one time, so it's 4 times. That doesn't make sense. If you take it one time for one test, you're going to go 4 times. But after that, you can go as a repeat and freshen up and kind of highlight the areas that you want to focus on. So just an idea for you, you can Google the College Prep Coach in Little Rock. I did try it again this time, and I don't know, maybe I have the wrong number. But the number that I had and I found online is, I don't know if you'll write it down, but it's 501-256-3552. And the recommendation is for your student to start taking the ACT at the end of their sophomore class. So that way, there's going to be some biology on there, there's going to be some geometry and algebra 1, algebra 2, even some trigonometry, which you may not have that at that point. But it'll just get them in the hang of what does it look like to take the ACT, because you don't want to wait and have them take it one time their senior year, and for that one to be the one that's going to count for what you need it to count for. Okay, so we got the ACT dates here. Scholarships. For my son that is attending John Brown University, the last ACT score that they would accept for their scholarships was the one in December. That's where I screwed up. I did not register in time, so we did not get that.
December of their senior year?
Their senior year, whatever, yes, their senior year. So they can take as many times as they want, or the 7 times their junior year, but that December one, and that's just for that school. if your son or daughter is going to go to college somewhere, you might research to find out what the criteria is for that school so that you know not to miss that. You want to also check out the Arkansas Department of Higher Education website, and it's listed here. This is a website that has so much information on it about scholarships. So the governor's scholarship, the governor's distinguished scholarship, do you guys know how many home ed kids had it last year? I don't put me on the spot.
I think there were 4 or 5.
4 or 5 dozen.
Yeah, I think so too.
4 or 5 listed.
Yes, so that's such a great opportunity because they're going to get a $10,000 per year scholarship if they earn the Arkansas Governor's Distinguished Scholarship. So on that, they have to have a 32 on their ACT Super Score Spine, which was new. It used to be where it had to be their composite, and now it's Super Score. And they have to have a 3.5 GPA in order to qualify. But hey, $10,000 a year, that's 40.
Is that only for in-state?
Yes, it is only for in-state. I think that's a great question. So if your student is going to be you're looking at going to LaTerna because he's majoring in engineering, that's great, but he couldn't take the scholarships with him that are provided by the Arkansas lottery. So if you look at there, I've laid out like the different scholarships that are offered to everybody. So if you are an Arkansas resident, the academic challenge gives you $1,000 their freshman year, $4,000 their sophomore year, $4,000 junior year, and then $5,000 for their senior year. For us, when we went to John Brown, they said, hey, because of the lottery scholarship, instead of doing $1,000 their first year, we're going to go ahead and do $4,000. So I know they've done that, and every year it's like, we don't know if we're going to do it this year, and then they end up doing it, so they're not going to commit to it, but I don't know if they're doing it going into the 24-25 school year, but it was an opportunity for us, and that kind of put us over the edge knowing that we were going to stay in state because that was too much money for us to avoid getting from a college. And for my son, he ended up getting also a scholarship at the college. Scholarships, man, it just sounds like, oh my goodness, my son got a scholarship. It's not that uncommon. Most kids are going to get some sort of scholarship regardless of the financial need from the school. I have a friend that is on a board up in Minnesota that runs, it's the University of Northwestern in St. Paul, and they charge $40 grand a year for college. He told me that when it comes down to it, they really only need $19,000 per student. And I'm like, well, why don't you charge $19,000 then instead of like, but everybody feels good because you go, oh, I got a $20,000 scholarship. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's kind of like that whole Bed Bath & Beyond. I got 20% off. And now we're today, right? So anyway, so there are places that might match this too. And you know what I learned? I did it the hard way after my daughter went to John Brown University. I said to them, I'm like, I got 2 kids in college. Is there any way that you can help me? And they were like, well, like, what are you thinking? And I was like, I don't know, like $5,000. And they were like, no problem. I'm like, I knew if that would be that easy, I would have asked for 10. So there's a lot of flexibility on that for sure. So don't let the sticker price be like, okay, this is the final price I'm paying. Don't let that shock you at all. Yes?
And is there anything special we have to do to apply for this, or is it just automatic?
You do have to apply for it, yes. And they have to maintain, I think it is 14 or 15 hours a semester. So if they go below that, they won't be able to receive that money.
Okay.
So it's basically a 12, it's kind of confusing because 12 hours is a full-time college student, not full-time, which is what they require. And so that could be definitely a challenge.
So if you have a kid that only needs 1 or 2 classes,
You're not going to get it.
their senior or their second semester, their senior year, they need to go ahead and take 14 or 15 hours if
Right.
they wanted to get that.
Right. It's like at John Brown University. It doesn't matter if you take 5 classes or 7 classes. It's going to be the same amount as it would be if he was taking 2 or 3 classes. Unless he was going to unenroll as a full-time student and then just be taking probably just like a class, like you were saying, a class here and there.
Mm.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but my daughter has the governor's distinguished, and she has to keep a GPA.
Yes, yes, you do on both of them, absolutely, yes. I don't know, I think that it's not very high, on the Arkansas Challenge one. I think it's maybe like a 2.8, but don't quote me on that. It'll be on the Arkansas Department of Higher Education website. For the Arkansas, I think that the governor's one is like a 3.5.
I was about to say it's for.
Yeah, Jennifer's gonna look it up for us.
And do you have to do something to qualify for the academic challenge one, or?
All you have to do is apply.
Oh.
Yeah,
I think
that's
you
all
have to
you
have a
have
19. I think I saw.
You're
a
right,
sign
I'm
that said
sorry.
19.
Yes, you do have to have a 19. Yes, thank you. You do have to have a 19 on your ACT, and then you have to have, I think it's three, I don't, no, that's not the one I was thinking of.
Is it a 2 point something?
I think it is a 2.8, my daughter.
A 2.8 GPA in order to get the Arkansas Lottery Scholarship.
Yeah, you maintain it and.
And maintain a 2.8, okay. Great, thank you for that information.
This email right here, this sans.adhd.edu is where we go, right? So why?
That's the website, yes, and you'll find it on there, and, you'll wanna try to do it by the end of the year, but you're gonna have to do the FAFSA, so we're not gonna really talk about the FAFSA since that's way out of my league, but we hate the FAFSA. It is necessary, if you wanna do any of these Arkansas Lottery Scholarships, you have to do the FAFSA.
I mean, it's required for scholarships.
Any assistance, grants, whatever, you have to do the FAFSA.
When do you need to,
It's FAFSA.
when,
And they've totally revamped it, so it's now, usually it's every October, they've pushed it to December this year. So if you have done it, your student's getting ready to go to college in 2 years, you don't have to do it now. I think you have to do it, I think you do it the year that they're at college, so I won't have to do it for my senior until next October, that's not right. That's not right, I have to do it this October.
Yeah.
But
so fall of senior year?
fall of senior year, but usually it's October, right now it's December because they don't have it together yet. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a question about the FAFSA, and only because I just had to do this with my middle daughter, who, by the way, was not homeschooled. So we did the FAFSA the first 2 years. We did not do the FAFSA in her junior year, and we still got the scholarship through.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened with that, because I was kind of freaked out by it, and then the money still showed up at UCA, and then her senior year, when she was getting the 5,000, it showed up again too, because I was like, all right, we're not
That's
doing
good.
Yeah, I just was like, I'm not doing this FAFSA thing.
Right.
It's very stressful.
Well, and it's very confusing because if I fill it out next month, it's not based on my current income, it's based on my income, I think, from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's really kind of crazy, and this new way that they're doing it, they're saying that, because at the end of the day, I mean, it's hard to get any sort of financial assistance from the federal government. And so you can have different theories about the FAFSA of them getting your personal information. I know people that are like, I'm not gonna fill it out because I don't want people to have that information. I totally respect that. I'm on the other side where I'm like, I'm gonna give whatever they need if that means I'm gonna get this money off.
Right, like I said, I did do it for 2 years, and then after that, I just was like, okay, we're not gonna take out any more loans, we weren't gonna do it anymore, and we just ended up paying cash. But like I said, it just showed up in the bank account at UCA, and I was like, all right, so.
You have to fill it out every year.
Yeah, because your income may change every year.
From 2 years ago.
2 years ago. So then they're gonna want to have,
That doesn't
not
make,
even the most recent, it's still gonna be from 2 years.
that doesn't make any sense.
They check your tax return.
They do, you
So
tie
that's
it
why
with your
they're-
tax
because
return.
From 2 years ago.
Well, because last year may still not be processed. So
Sure.
the one that's totally completed is 2 years ago. And then the next year will be the next year. So they
Because
check.
of
the-
lack of government efficiency.
Yes.
Right.
But they do check.
Got
they-
that
they-
part.
I mean, bottom line.
Got that
That's
part.
why they requested, because they were so far behind for me, they were like, okay, we'll just push it back.
Yeah, they do check your tax.
Hey, bonus, I mean,
One,
I wouldn't fill it out either if I didn't have to.
one thing we had come up was that Grayson had to go in and accept it again for his sophomore year. So you have to go
can't
in,
just assume that you're automatically
yeah,
gonna get
you
it.
have to
do
accept
go
it.
in and accept it every single year.
Right.
So that's definitely something that could easily slip through. I hate that, like, a lot of times they have my son's email address, and I don't know, is he gonna do it or not?
Yeah.
I don't even know that.
Information and acceptance.
Why? I got time to be checking his email. I'm And I know that they were just, I just went through this with my son that's at John Brown, and they were having major glitches, and like it didn't show up in his John Brown account. So John Brown is like, oh, that $5,000, if it's not in there, we're gonna start charging you interest for not paying on your $5,000, because he paid everything else. And it's like, and we have the Arkansas Department of Higher Education going, we've got a glitch in our system, we're trying our best. So anyway, they are saying that, I think the number is 15% of more people will get federal assistance through this new way they're doing a FAFSA. So take that for what it's worth. But yes, FAFSA is a whole other session.
Yeah.
But, yes,
Yeah.
But the SAMS, that one that you were talking about, the scholarship application management system, that is amazing to go in and just start entering, because for my son, I started like gathering all that information, and then it tells you what scholarships he's eligible for when you enter in all of his stuff. So that because I didn't actually know about the academic challenge scholarship, and it showed up. It was like, hey, he's qualified for this. What, here's how to apply. And so like all the application was through this. So I would highly recommend getting on there and start there. And it will even say, if you haven't done the FAFSA, go do the FAFSA. So if you haven't started scholarship thinking or anything, I would say this, I don't know, would you say the same?
Yes.
Like this is a great place to start, to just kind of start navigating your way through.
Yes.
It's kind of a muddy water, but that was really helpful.
At that, Arkansas Higher Education, they are a great place to see other scholarships. And they will say that there are millions of dollars of scholarships that go unclaimed. So I'm like, I wish they would tell me where those were, because I would go and find them. And so, but there's like a scholarship for a left-handed person, or a scholarship for if you are Indian, or a scholarship for, there's all these different scholarships that you just have to spend time. I had a friend that was a class that she made her daughter go through. Every week she had to spend 3 hours researching scholarships, and then come back and they would apply to them together. But that was one of her classes, was spending time researching, because the mom figured this was going to save everybody a lot of money if they could find some scholarships. And it really, they are there, it just takes time to dig and dig and dig. We did one over at the, oh my goodness, it's on Canis, the Army Veterans place. Like you had to write write some sort of poem about being a veteran and thanking a veteran. So my daughter did it, and they're like, she's the one that did it, here's $500. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
So even your electric company, like Arkansas Economic, or First Electric does, and so does like Saline County Electric, they,
Entergy does.
yeah.
I mean, whatever it takes. Your husband or your employer, a lot of times they do scholarships, so it's just really taking the time to find them.
I was gonna say that your FAFSA basically determines if you're eligible for scholarships and grants, but these two on the front are not at all related to your income. So regardless if you have too much to get grants or not enough, those don't matter. But you still have to fill out the FAFSA.
You still have to do the FAFSA.
Yeah, but they won't kick you out if you make too much.
Right. And that's probably the harder thing to find, is scholarships that are not tied to your financial situation. And so they're there, it's just a matter of trying to find them. And so a lot of them can be based, I know Chick-fil-A, if any of your kids work at Chick-fil-A, they have a scholarship. They have two different scholarships. One that I was reading is like $1,500 to $2,500, and then they have one that's $25,000. The $25,000 one is a financial need based, along with community service and all those kind of things. The other one is not. So there's different opportunities out there. I would say if you're looking for more money, maybe have your kid go work for Chick-fil-A.
Check with the colleges too, because Harding actually offers a homeschool scholarship.
Yeah.
They give a $2,000 homeschool scholarship.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Like whatever that can, because I think that a lot of these colleges are seeing that the homeschool students, once they get there, they're a lot more serious than these other students that are coming to college. And so, now I'm not claiming that for my youngest, because I'm afraid that he won't take any classes and it'll be a waste of money. But I think that a lot of times they're wanting more homeschoolers because they know that they take their academics a lot more seriously. So,
Do you think it's too early to start on the scholarship applications?
for like what age? I've seen
My senior.
for a senior, no, it's definitely not. Like I've seen things where you get it your freshman year, like at freshman of high school, and hold on to it until they get to
has anybody, I mean, I'm curious, like, how much of it do you do as a mom versus like trying to get my 17-year-old or 18-year-old to like, I'm just trying to get them to do the applications.
Right.
Like,
I think
did
a lot
you
of-
do a lot of the scholarship stuff just to make sure
I
it
did.
happened? I'm just curious.
I did because my kids weren't as motivated as I was to get the money, and so I did a lot of that with them. But there's a lot of times, like Martha Schmidt, the lady I referred to earlier, I would like have my kids like write their essay, and then she would like proof it and add to it and help it make it sound really good, because that's not my skill set. Like she said, I'm not a teacher. So they ended up like utilizing that same essay and just revamping it for the different the scholarship applications were needed. So I had to do a little bit more hand holding than like my friend whose daughter just was like, it was a challenge to her to find these, you know.
Yeah. So you had a lot of footwork, and then you're like, here, write an essay on this topic, kind of thing?
Right.
Okay.
And so much of it is your financial information too, for most, a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Like, and your kid doesn't know that.
I didn't have any help doing that stuff. But you know,
Right.
like, neither did I. So I'm like, I just wanted to figure it out, but I'm thinking, I don't think he's gonna do it. It has to happen.
It was reality, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have any scholarships that I had to provide my financial information because they just pulled it from the FAFSA. So that definitely saved me a step in that, so, anyway. Okay, let's talk about your graduation requirements. And I really just commend you guys for being here, because it's so good to know this and not be surprised when you get to be a senior and be like, oh my goodness, like I was this year, and I'm like, oh shoot, we haven't taken health. And adding help this year. So even, we all learn the hard way sometimes. But you have to be a member of home ed in order to graduate from home ed. And so that your senior year. Now if you, correct me if I'm wrong, but like if you're not a member when you're a senior or a junior or a freshman, that's okay, but your senior year, if you're not a member, you won't be able to graduate. And there are fees with that. You can talk to Tammy about what that looks like on that. So you have to be a member of October, like that's the deadline. We've got senior meetings in October that are necessary to plan graduation. I know it might be, oh my goodness, why are we planning in October? But it's a necessity because of the correlation with Jostens. So Jostens is our partner who does all of anybody that wants the cap and gown, which everybody's gonna have cap and gown, that's a requirement. But if you want invitations, or if you want class ring, or if you want a class jacket or whatever, Jostens offers that for home ed students, but it has to be ordered that far in advance in order for it to arrive in time. So, there are basically now, with home ed, 2 tracks for you to pick from. There's a tradition track and there's the flex track. So if you look at this right here, this is going to tell you more about what those look like. And this will give you a breakdown. This is also on the home ed website. You can go there and this tells you exactly where to find it, which it's way much easier now to find it than it was before. It was like hide and go seek before, so thank you for making that very easy. But when you go to homeedonline.com, just click on the I Want To menu, and then you'll see Home Educators Graduation Requirements. Okay, so on these 2 tracks, there are 22 credits that is necessary for your student to be able to graduate. You will see these on this handout here. Has it? This is new. This is awesome. I put in here a transcript checklist that also lays it out, but this one looks way better than that one. So this one.
This is not on the website.
This right here is on the website.
Yeah.
This is on the Arkansas Department of Education website.
Yes.
It's also,
But it's also on ours.
are they gonna, like, could it be put on there?
You could do
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Also
If anybody
change it.
wants, like, I actually have this in a Word document. If anybody would like to just have it as a Word document that you can edit. I also have sample transcripts that I could send along as well. So if you leave your email address with me, I can email this out so you can have digital copies.
And this one is on the website.
If we have it in a Word document file and we fill it all out, will they accept it like the state universities or?
No,
that's
and
not
the
what you're gonna
transcripts,
use.
no, like, no,
Oh,
they're,
okay.
no, but I have sample transcripts that are editable too. Like, if you wanted to just type in your classes, like,
Okay.
like this is, so I kinda have this in 2 different documents that if
We,
anybody wants.
we can add this too, so if you wanna.
Tammy just said that we can add this to the website, so this is nice and clean, so I really like this. The reason that you need this is because you're gonna have to fill this out for your class mom. So you're gonna have to tell them how you want your classes credited. So we're gonna dive into all these different requirements, so 22 credits. 4 of them have to be English. So I'm gonna give you just an example of what we did. I'm sure that plenty of these ladies can share more, if you are interested in finding out more what that looks like. So for my oldest, back in the day, we had what's called ECHO. So ECHO was an organization that allowed you to do something through Pulaski Tech. And it allowed you then to have a concurrent score, or concurrent classes. So we're going to talk about concurrent here in just a minute. But now SAU does that. But what my son did was he took Intro to Writing at Hope Co-op. His sophomore year, he took Intermediate Writing at Hope Co-op. And then his junior year, he took Comp 1. So that was his concurrent class. It's a year worth of credit in high school, but yet he only had to take it for 1 semester at college. It cost us $281. There's no fee for it anymore, but too bad, it is what it is. So then his senior year, we ended up doing Comp 2. So that's how he worked out his 4 credits of what English looks like. On math, you take Algebra 1 and Geometry. Those are the 2 that are required. And then when it gets to, you can take Algebra 2 if you want to take the traditional track. The 4th math can be like statistics, consumer math, pre-calculus, trigonometry, calculus. There's also this kind of ambiguous computer science class that is so awesome because it can be counted as either science or math. So whatever you need, that's why this sheet is so important, because you're the one that gets to decide where to count that credit. And a lot of these classes are going to be offered. We just took the Hope Co-op, that's where we took the classes. There's plenty of other places to get this as well. On science, you need 3 credits to graduate. Oh, sorry, I skipped social studies. So that's the world history, U.S. history, civics, and then looks like that got changed. Okay, so you can take U.S. history, world history, but then with civics, you only have to take take a semester, so a half a year of civics, and you'll have to take a half a year of economics to graduate, to be able to have your information that you need to graduate. So when you look at social studies, like what we did is we took U.S. history from the concurrent classes, we took world history as a concurrent class, and those were the 2, and then the 0.5, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Tammy, 0.5 for civics and the 0.5 for economics, was that equals the 3rd one, is that right? Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so for us it really works great because we also are going to have to take a computer class, or not a computer class, an online class, and so when he took it through Pulaski Tech or through SAU, that then counted as dual, so it counted as his credit for world history, but also counted as a credit for online classes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so my daughter is taking a psychology course through, is it Sailor? How do I approve, will they give me like some type of certificate or like?
You don't need anything.
I don't need anything like that. She just completes it and I say she did it.
Mm-hmm. And you can count that as a science, or you can count that as a career focus, because they're gonna need 6 classes of career focus.
Okay.
So, yes,
How do you know what career focus is?
I have one question. On that Arkansas Civics exam, is that the exam for the civics class?
Yeah,
Or okay, it has nothing to do with like an official.
right,
exam.
that's not gonna be a part of what we're talking about at all, so this is really just the semester of civics that they
Okay.
have to take. Yes.
And the career focus,
Yeah.
it is just electives, right? It's
It's everything that you want it to be. So like, let's say that your son loves Spanish, Spanish is a career focus. If your son or daughter wants to take pre-calculus and calculus, and you're at 5 maths, then you can take one of those and clown as your career focus. You're the judge, you're the guide, you're in charge, whatever it is that you want.
So if they do some kind of sport or whatever,
Yes.
and you can count that as career focus.
Now, I don't know about that. That's
Or
gonna
is
be.
that considered PE?
Well, it is considered PE, but if, like, what I do is, like, I have basketball every single semester on my transcript, but for my checklist, that's probably not gonna count as my basketball. When I was a senior mom, basketball would count as our PE, but it wouldn't count as like 4 more career focus.
Got it.
Yeah.
So,
And a lot of your colleges don't want to see that.
PE only needed a night.
say that one more time.
PE is not needed every
Year, no, you just need to have half a
Right.
year of that.
That's
Yes,
awesome.
right.
Tanya Whitfield, University Eckerd, that run, Academy, told me that our daughter rides, both of our daughters ride horses, and they ride 3 times a week, they show, they do all that stuff. She said that I could count, 1 year for PE, and she said I could count 1 as an elective, I could count or use it for 1 elective, because she does it every year. I can't use it as 3 electives, but I can use it as 1 elective, and plus the PE credit.
Well, she's probably learning a lot of things about the horse and about just all of the intricacies of it. So I can see where that can be the case.
It
At
can
the
also
end
be
of the day,
science too.
it could be. And again, you're in charge. So, can I say that again? Okay, fine arts. So fine arts, you need 1 semester of this. My son took piano, so that counted for that. My daughter took an arts class at Hope. My other son took guitar lessons. So whatever that looks like, some sort of 1 semester of fine arts. And then we talked about physical education. My oldest is not, he's not the sports guy. So he was not in any sort of sport, but what he did over the summer is he ran 3 miles every day. So that ended up counting for his, and that worked. So health and safety, you need a semester of that. So right now, my youngest is taking the health class that's offered right now at the Hope Co-op. My oldest took it online from the Blaski Tech as a concurrent class as well. Speech. Does anybody have anybody in casting crew or anything like that? Any sort of the speech debate team? Because those are areas that would count for your debate or for your speech credit as well. You can also take a class. It's up to you on how you execute the speech. I think speech is so important because our kids are not in front of other people very often. And so their job may necessitate for them to be in front of a crowd. And so I think it's really, I've loved having my kids I had one do it online. I'm like, how do you do an online speech? That doesn't make any sense to me. But she was an introvert, and so she was really okay with that. But for the other, I just think it's really important for our students to take the speech. All right, now we're down to the 6th career focus. So that is, we talked a little bit about that. If your child does robotics, I would count that as a career focus. If they do, we talked about psychology, that would be one. If they did driver's ed, I counted that as a career focus. We did a lot of, not at a co-op, but we did it at home. We did some things like Bible history and things like that. So that counted as an elective for him. Then lastly, the online class. It can be any of these classes can be an online class. So it's just getting your students prepared for what that looks like if they decide to go to college. Now, the state has a few other requirements that are not included in home ed. So you don't have to take a CPR certification, you don't have to take a finance class, and you don't have to take the civics exam. So none of those are necessary in order to graduate from home ed. Any questions about the classes?
Yes, sorry. I have a daughter already in college, but she went through public school, so this is new for me through homeschool. I have been told before that if you have too many concurrent credits, then it can mess you up.
Yes,
For
we're going to
college.
get to that.
You are gonna get to
Yes.
that, okay, good.
Yes, in fact, that's next on our list of concurrent classes.
Okay, sorry.
No, because it's really important. If your student wants to go to college, you need to do your research on So, we use the SAU, so that's kind of replaced Pulaski Tech. And what it allows as a concurrent student, you can take 2 classes free from them. So don't pay for your books. It's all online, and they're all with other homeschoolers. When my son took it through Pulaski Tech, the Comp 1, the topic for the semester was horror films. So I'm like, all these homeschoolers are in this horror film class that's Comp 1. Anyway, I'm sure that teacher was just trying to be funny. Anyway, but yes, so I put the contact there, Britta Clark. There's other places other than just SAU that offer this as well. So what's great about the concurrent classes is that, like I said earlier, you can take it for 1 semester, but it counts for the full year. So last year, with my son, my youngest, he's a senior this year, but he should have graduated last year. What he wanted to do was to play an extra year of basketball, so we had to make the decision last year that he was going to repeat his junior year. So he needed it for many reasons. Basketball just was like the thing that sent him over on, yes, I'm going to wait another year. And as homeschoolers, we can do that. We have that flexibility. So the other thing with him is that you have to qualify in order to be able to take classes from SAU. So you have to have a 19 on your ACT or a certain grade on the AccuPlacer. So the AccuPlacer is really something more for like a 10th grader might want to take that, and it will allow them the opportunity. You can take it at Pulaski Tech, and then they'll send it to whatever college that you want to take it. There's different, it's like 252 for the reading, and then it's like 260 for this one. So every different subject has a different grade that you have to get. But you can take it, it's like takes 2 hours at Pulaski Tech to take. But that is a requirement in order to get into SAU and probably other concurrent classes. I would highly recommend like your junior year for your student to take maybe just like 1 class and test it out. The thing about the classes, if you take them when you're a concurrent, is that if you get a D in that class, it doesn't matter. That D is not going to transfer over to college. When you get to college, for good or for bad, if your son makes all A's, it's not really going to matter because it just shows up as a credit. So my son ended up taking 21 hours when he was in high school that counted towards his college credit. So none of those, so it was like, oh, I was hoping that these would be easier classes in high school than he would have to take in college. And while that was the case, that didn't help his GPA at all. So there are some families that say, hey, I need my son to have a higher GPA. Well, then you may decide to wait and not do that. But for my son, what worked was that allowed him to do engineering and business as a double major. Otherwise, he would probably be able to be done a semester early, but this has allowed him to take it a little bit slower and be able to add more classes so that he would end up graduating with 2 majors. But going back to your question, for our school, for John Brown University, it did not impact his scholarship from John Brown based on those 21 hours. So the reason that she's asking that question is because if you have too many hours and you enter college as a sophomore because the hours that are under your belt, then you won't be eligible for some of those freshman scholarships. So you just have to be cautious and know what it is that they're looking for so that you don't fall into a situation where your student has taken all these classes and now it doesn't really even matter. So I know for John Brown, I can go online, I did this yesterday, for my senior who's looking to go there and to see all the classes that they are looking for in a high school student. Well, all of a sudden, which I haven't checked it in a couple of years, all of a sudden now they're like highly recommending Spanish. We don't have any Spanish. And so I'm like, okay, well, is that a necessity or is it not a necessity? Well, it's just highly recommended. Okay, good, because he doesn't, and we're not going to take it. So that's a good thing, but knowing where you want to go, for us, it was just such a relief. And I'm not saying that this is ideal for everyone, but it helped me, I think, just like psychologically to know going into my child's senior year, where are they going to go to college? What are they going to do so that I can take care of the next 9 months and be able to enjoy their senior year and be able to make sure that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, so that there's no confusion and we get to college and go, I had no idea that this happened. So for us, that definitely helped out. I'm not there in my senior, which is why I'm like, oh my goodness, what are we gonna do? But he's a different bird, anyway. Okay, any questions on the concurrent classes?
Well, I was on concurrent classes. I was wondering if you'd explain a little more about the flex track versus the traditional track.
You bet. So on here, you'll see this. One side is the traditional track. This used to be called the SMART Core. If your student is going to go to college, this is the best route to go to, because they are going to look for things on the transcript that are required on here. Now, you don't have to go when Tammy's the senior mom this year, you don't have to tell her, I'm going to only do the traditional track, or I'm going to do the flex track. Like, nobody's going to know that but you. Now, she'll know when she sees the paper and you fill it out one
So
side or the other.
we have to fill out this.
You can keep this yourself, or there's the transcript checklist that's in this packet. And so that's what I used, was this checklist. And again, which is really crazy like this year, so my son repeated his junior year, where am I going to count? Like, he's got 15 classes his junior year, so how am I going to, so I got to figure out where am I going to put all those so it doesn't look like, oh my goodness, he's got all these classes his junior year. So the flex track that's on the other side, you can see on there. Now this one here, this one doesn't necessarily, this is really the more flex track. So.
Traditional.
That's
traditional. Yeah.
Excuse me, the traditional track, and then the other side is the flex.
You said traditional is SMART Core.
That is the former SMART Core. Yes. On the flex track, there's no algebra 2, and the third science can be whatever it is that you want it to be. Whereas right now with the math, you have to take physical science, you have to take biology, and then your third science can be like anatomy, physiology, chemistry, physics.
And if you've been a part of home ed before, what we're calling the traditional track, it's not changed. These are the same requirements that home ed has always had, but we've just changed the name to the traditional track. And then we added the option of the flex track. And so the flex, and we did that because, it's like what it says up here, that we aim to honor the freedom that's allowed by the state law concerning homeschooling. So we're trying to give more options there.
Because it says there are no specific types of credits required.
Exactly.
Right.
So, if you look on the Arkansas state law, when it comes to homeschooling, there are no requirements as far as courses, classes, types of credits. It actually, they don't even require 22 credit hours. Like, they just say, you as a homeschooler get to issue your diploma whenever you feel like your child has earned a high school diploma. So they don't even have a credit. Now, just for the sake of us being an organization and having a graduation ceremony, we are saying we feel like 22 high school credits is not unreasonable, and it's pretty average for what a lot of high schoolers end up getting. In fact, probably it's on the low end. I know my son graduated last year, he had 28 credits, and so I just kept adding them to his transcript as he took classes. So you will probably find that 22 credits is not very difficult to get. And so basically, we just wanted to honor the fact that Arkansas state law allows you freedom to teach what you want, when you want, how you want, with what material you want, in the way that you want, and so we wanted to honor that. And that's why we added the flex track this year, because there are more and more. Honestly, this was part of the reason I really wanted to join home ed, was because my daughter is not a college-bound student. She's an entrepreneur and a wild heart, and so she's going to be going off, starting her own business. So there were a lot of things on the traditional track that did not look good to her at all to take, like wanted to kind of get sick to her stomach and looking at it. So I was like, well, I want to create a different opportunity for her. So she's doing a lot more career shadowing. She's taking digital marketing courses, just learning things on her own. And I'm putting together my own credits. And so that's why I will be enrolling her in the flex track. She'll do the flex track, so we don't have to abide by all these extra requirements for certain courses.
But if they're going to college, college is gonna be looking for certain things.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
It depends on the college that you go to. I know Pulaski Tech, I've talked to them, and they just want to check that you've got certain, like a transcript. I don't know how closely they look at all, like, because people have said, well, what if your daughter ends up deciding, oh, I want to go to college now? I do think if you have a transcript that has 22 credit hours, even if it's not 4 English, maybe she only had 2 English, I think that it would be acceptable. But yes, as a general statement, if your child, if you know they are college bound, we highly recommend the traditional track, just so that you can have peace of mind and know that they will meet most of the entry requirements by most colleges. But we also wanted to offer those homeschoolers that are a little bit, I was the one that was like, this is gonna be a challenge for us to fit in the traditional track for my daughter, and so we're doing a little bit.
Which I love that flexibility.
Yeah.
I love that flexibility. And that's where it goes back to, you've gotta look at, if your child is looking to go to college, what college are they wanting to go to, and what are the requirements there? And so that might help you in deciding which, and it's not even really the college, but like what's that major?
Yes.
So if the major is something that's more science focused, they may require 4 heavy sciences, and maybe even 2 of those with a lab that you're gonna have to require to even be considered to go to school there. So knowing where you're gonna go is really helpful, and then, which is like, my 18-year-old doesn't know what he wants to do. How am I supposed to decide now? And so, anyway, if he decided to become a scientist, then yeah, he just would. He'd be like, there's another option.
I have a quick question on the graduation requirements. Under health and safety, is that like health ed? Do we,
We've had it, yeah.
If it, I mean, here's the other thing I'd like to, like, you can think outside the box for some of the elective credits, like for my son, health, I counted his lifeguarding course. He took lifeguarding, he took AED certification, CPR, first aid, all that stuff. And so I counted that for his, because he spent a lot of time on that in practice and then working as a lifeguard, so I counted that as his health credit. So you don't have to, like, especially for the electives and some of those other courses, don't feel like you have to get a textbook for it. If you, like, I've always encouraged people to look at what your child is already interested in and actively involved in, and what do they spend their time learning. Like, I give my son a digital video editing credit because he created his own YouTube channel and started editing videos and adding text and doing it, and I didn't even know he was doing it. He was like, hey mom, come and look at this. And when I looked at it, he had spent so much time, I was like, I'm giving you a half credit. He's not an artist or a musician, and I was really kind of worried about his fine arts credit. And I was like, oh, actually, I'll give this to you first. So, like, look at what your kids are interested in. What lights them up about learning, and is there a way you can turn that into a credit, especially for the electives?
My son's the same way. He was in Scouts, so he had a
Yes,
lot of
another,
training in CPR and health and safety, and lots of hours with that. And then he was also a lifeguard, so he can count a lot of that. We counted that as his health and safety.
Now, I don't know where home ed lands right now on this, so you guys have to speak into this, but I know when I was a senior mom, that you had to do 128 hours of whatever that was in order to get a full year credit for that. Is that still the same thing?
I think they want it to be. I mean, you know, that's there's some flexibility there.
Also looking at these other requirements here, the algebra and the computer science, I don't have any questions about, but the digital course and then the personal and family finance.
Those,
Yeah, that goes along with economics. So economics, a lot of your economics classes will cover that.
No. This right here, this is the Arkansas State requirements. You are not bound by these. We are saying this is public school. This is what the average public schooler will complete in high school. But we, as traditional track homeschoolers, want to do as much as we can to match it so that if you are pursuing college, that you are going to be able to smoothly go into it.
Right.
I would say, like, I think for the most part, your course requirements at the top of the chart, that's your core stuff. These extra things, these are things that
So these would be all my career focus / electives.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, they have like we don't have to pass the Arkansas Civics exam. We are not requiring CPR training. The only
Yeah.
two that we require is that they take a digital online course, and just
Right.
like we mentioned before, you can count, like if you take one of the dual credit courses, it is all online. You
Right.
just count that, like say,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
they took a digital course. It doesn't have to be extra.
That's
or
kind of so you can
additional.
compare
Oh,
what
right.
Arkansas state laws or what their Arkansas
Okay, sorry, I
education
started a little
department.
bit of panic right
Yeah, yeah. So like for civics, my son got a civics credit because I don't know if you've heard of Teen Pact, but it is the political workshop. It's hands-on. If you take it, if they take it for 3 years in a row, you can count that as your civics credit. And so he was very politically minded. That's what he wants to go into. So he did it actually 4 years, and he got to count that as his civics credit.
Okay.
Okay, yes, go ahead. No, no, no.
Let me get back to the concurrent credits real fast. Okay, my daughter that went through public school, she took AP courses, she ended up with like a 4.2 because of that. So if my daughter who's at home takes an AP test at the end of this year for a class she's currently in, and she passes it, can I weigh her grades like they do at the
I believe that home ed only weighs it on the 4-point scale, so it would not necessarily
So
count
it's
as
really pointless for her to take an AP course.
But for college.
But for,
Yeah, you gotta look to where
Yeah.
you wanna go.
Yeah.
It would be
What's the
more
goal?
beneficial for her in college to have that on her transcript.
Well, I
Right.
mean, for that, but I could do a concurrent credit and get it. I mean, I'm saying concurrent credit.
Depends on where you're
versus
going
AP,
to school.
There's no point in doing an
Right.
AP if you can do the concurrent credit.
Because some colleges won't take the credit. So I think you should speak on that. You know what I mean? Like,
So they'll take the credit, so if she takes that class, like a concurrent class, they're gonna take the credit, so she takes psychology, it's gonna show up, she takes psychology. She gets a C in it, it's not gonna show up anywhere.
That's for concurrent credit.
Yes.
some
But if
colleges
she
out of
takes the
state don't
AP
take.
psych exam,
I didn't have anybody take the AP, so I don't know.
so
But I
that's
know
not
if
learning
you
is that
can-
most
Well,
schoolers don't really do a lot of
One of my
AP
kids
testing.
is Baylor, one of my kids graduated from Baylor, one graduated from U of A. Baylor took almost nothing.
Right,
of
that's-
Arkansas. A
right.
5 they would take. If it's a 4 or 3 or 2 AP, they don't even take it.
Right.
So I think it depends on where Baylor.
Where you're
like,
going.
Ching, you're there, you know, I mean, I think
It depends on where you're
your
going.
kid wants to go. Baylor also, Ethan was not allowed to take any summer classes here basically unless he took them from the U of A Fayetteville. So I mean, I think it just depends on where
yeah.
they are and what they think they
Again,
do.
Yeah, because some of it won't transfer.
But for your daughter, she had like you were talking about the 4.2, with home ed, it would just still be the
Just be the
4-point
4
system.
Okay.
But what I do, and you can see on the transcript, so this is one of my sample transcripts, on here, is that I put a little indicator of the classes that my student took from UALR or from Pulaski Tech, so that then those would be looked at as, from a college standpoint, as a heavier class.
Okay.
Is that like that they had taken some college classes?
Okay.
So on your transcript, I know Jennifer said she's got some transcripts over there too. What we did is starting, as I mentioned earlier, freshman year, just keeping track of the grades. So each one of these little blocks here is, I just did it in Excel, so it was really easy for me to keep up with. You're really not gonna need it until maybe the junior year. If your student wants to drive and you want to have them insured, you're gonna need a transcript. So what we did is we used the Education Alliance, and you can, it's whatever your donation might be, we'd send them $10, and then I would email this, and you have to go on their website, and you fill in all the things that you want to be on the transcript. And then I get in the mail, and they're super fast, a transcript that really looks official. So this to me doesn't look official at all. But so when I then upload that to the college site when we are applying, because we just applied last week, then they're gonna see that instead of something like this, which to me this is more homeschooled versus something official that has a seal on it from the Home Educator Alliance.
So how do you go about doing that?
So educational, you can go online, and it's all online. You just fill it out. It's
Just Google Education Alliance.
Yeah.
And they're out of Conway, I think, aren't they? Or
They're in-
Searcy?
They're I think they're based in Little Rock. Yeah. Now, the other thing about Education Alliance is they have now started keeping transcripts on record indefinitely. They did not used to keep those on record. Like, so once your child, they printed your transcript, that was it. They didn't keep it on record. Now they keep it on file because a lot of kids will come back and they need another copy of their transcript for maybe a different college or a job that they're applying for. And so you can always go back to Education Alliance and get a copy of your child's transcript later on down the road.
So
I
I'm
would
gonna
highly
have with it
recommend-
over the last 4 years, I can just email that to them,
Yep.
all her friends, everything.
Yes, it's a very
And you
easy
have to do it every
process.
time. So if you do it the freshman year, you have to do it all over again when they're a senior. So they don't keep
Yeah, I'm
up
just
with
thinking
you
right now
every
before
year.
we apply, so like Hendricks, UCA, they're not gonna accept this little thing that I have on
I
mine.
think that
Yeah,
was.
They did?
Yeah.
So wait, you have to
You
wait?
didn't go and go through it.
No, they,
It's
Wait
up
to
to each
input
person,
everything?
you know,
No,
whatever
no.
works for them.
I just didn't
They
know
don't-
if
it
they
doesn't
would even
keep it?
accept it. That's.
they actually keep it on, so you just add.
Right.
Okay,
I think it
yeah.
depends on the
Okay,
college.
okay,
yeah.
My son
Okay,
had
okay.
this accepted at 2 state universities. This is the sheet I did on Microsoft Word. So he got it, but I think you're right. You have to, number one, I'm comfortable with this. If you're not, if you want something more official, absolutely go the route of Education Alliance. They make it official, keep a record, that's fantastic. Pay for it.
They will also mail it straight to,
$10, it's a donation.
Yeah.
And I
Important
do
to
know
understand
that
that.
if I sent this into my insurance company, they were not gonna accept this for insurance for my son, for them to drive. So I had to send them something that was more official, and they weren't even really happy about that. But they gave us an allowance because of that.
they will also mail it straight to the Arkansas Scholarship and the universities for
That's
you.
important.
Wherever you want it to go, they will mail it directly from their offices to wherever you want it to go.
And
You
can
just have to
order as
give
many as
that.
you want. So if you
Yeah.
have 5 copies, like to keep some on
They
hand.
keep them in
you can send out.
envelopes.
I usually make a digital copy of it too, so I have that on hand too, because I always don't, I might not remember what I put down in their system as far as what year did, what credit go for.
Did they send them in sealed envelopes?
They do.
Okay.
I have this kind of stupid question. So we're starting to apply right now and going and visiting. So, like, obviously, I don't have her first semester grades. She's a senior.
That's totally fine, you don't need the first semester of their senior year on a transcript yet.
So you can still send it and then just.
Yeah,
give
so
them
all I
an
did,
update.
because I just did that last week, it's just the first 3 years. And they know that they're gonna ask for a new one, so even when you graduate with home ed, you're gonna turn in your transcript to them
The final.
early, but you're gonna have to turn in the next one later on in the spring to make sure that you have everything accounted for. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question. So, like, my son did 2.5 years, like 9th to 10th, and half of his junior year, like an online private school. And then, and some homeschool credits too, during that time. And then he has like homeschool transcripts. And then he also is taking 3 college classes. So like, does it depend on the college as far as what like, am I gonna have to have a
No, I just
transcript from
recommend
ASU
you would put them all
Rivers
together.
and a transcript from the private, or do I put his college classes on his homeschool transcript and only send out one homeschool transcript?
You're only gonna send one transcript if you can, and so you put it all on one transcript,
Okay.
that would probably be best.
I don't know, I feel like I saw somewhere on a like college website where they're gonna want transcripts from all the official schools they attended, but you haven't ran into them. Okay.
I wondered that too, actually.
I
If we're in a
think
And
situation
so
like
now
that.
they want it.
Yep, I would ask him, but we didn't run
Well,
into that.
if you,
Because I had one from SAU, I had one for Pulaski Tech, and so I put all of that on one transcript, and that's what I sent.
And you had no problems with that.
so if you, did they accept the credit for everything? So without the transcript from the university, they counted it saying, oh yeah, that's Pulaski Tech.
I eventually had to order it,
Okay,
yes, so
that's
to
right.
get into the college, they accepted it based on what we gave them, but in order for it to officially count as college
You need the
credit,
individual.
they did, but she was talking
That
about
makes
high
sense.
school.
That,
College,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, they would
Yeah.
have to have.
But if you went to another private school for high school, you can put that on your transcript, send it in. But if they are taking college level courses through another college, you'll want that transcript
Yeah,
eventually to
yeah.
count for credit.
For
Right, and they're gonna be really particular, they're not gonna want it from you, they're gonna want it from that college.
Right.
So, which can be a huge headache, so keeping up with that is sometimes not easy, like, I'm like, okay, was this from Pulaski Tech or UALR or wherever? And so, but they are gonna require that for that to count as a credit.
Do they want it sent directly to them from SAU?
Yes.
Yes, because I think they could be doctored or something, so,
What is the deadline for early admission?
for SAU,
Or, no, for any, I guess for any college and for.
I think it's gonna be different for every college.
Yeah.
College.
I know, like, my son was kind of waiting on it, like, they had some major issues at SAU, so he didn't get in until like 2 weeks later. So that was okay, but like, he's missed 2 weeks worth of work too, so he's like, just trying to keep up with, and that's been hard.
I think we get away, like my oldest daughter applied, and I think it was October for early admission. She ended up going to UCA though, and I think both of my girls applied in December.
Oh, do you mean like applying then for the next year?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, so like, I would look into your college, like what they're doing, so like with John Brown over Labor Day, they offered where the application was free and over just that time period, and so that's when we applied for John Brown, so I think, you know, every college is gonna be different.
Okay, so to clarify, if my daughter's at home, but she is taking 2 courses at Robinson High School. So when I send her stuff to this Education Alliance, I do or do not need to include her Robinson High School transcript as well.
I would include it on there. If
Include
it were
it,
me,
and then
I
you'll
would
create one whole one for
Education
me.
Alliance will include one for them.
Okay.
And I think on the educational one, when you're filling that out on the website, it will actually ask if they've taken it somewhere else. You can put an asterisk beside it and denote that somewhere in a little text box where, and if they have any questions about it, they will contact you.
I did that this time with them, and they took it off. They didn't have any of the asterisks or the college credits on there, so I thought that was really interesting. There are a couple other things to go over with the transcript, especially if you're a freshman. You need to be keeping up with the community service hours. So when you have a meet with your senior class mom, they're gonna ask you for your community service hours for your student, and then they calculate that all, and they love to celebrate just the different efforts that are made through the community service outreach. That's also really good on your transcript, it's also good on your application. But things like, are they serving at church? Have they helped a neighbor? Did they go on a mission trip? Did they serve on the prom committee? Are they a class officer? All of that really counts as far as the community service goes. Even like some of the stuff through Boy Scouts is gonna count as well, because there's so much community service with that. So
so how many community service hours do you have to have?
there's not a minimum.
I think, isn't there 250 hours to get like the service cord?
Certain,
It's recommended, like.
it's called the leadership cord, and you have to have a certain number of community service hours plus a certain GPA, and I forget, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, well, I do have a question then about that. So, like, Maggie's gonna take leadership through SEEK this fall. And then I think she was asked to do, for CARTA, she's gonna sew the little things that go over their, seat belt for the infusor ports. So somebody asked, could she do that? I said, yes. So does that count as her service?
That would be community, yeah, for sure.
Pay for it, it's sort of.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, by the fabric.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So permission trips, since they're in the summer, usually,
In a
do you get to pick which year to tack it on to?
Yep.
Yep.
It's up to you.
And for graduation, what we do is we just ask you, how many hours approximately, how many hours did your student have in service hours? And we don't list the individual student. We just say, like, there's somebody, a student will get up and give class statistics. And we'll say, our class combined had over, 25,000 hours of community service. Our class served in 52 different, communities for community service, and things like that. So they use statistics to kind of add to graduation on what the class has been able to accomplish.
How are y'all keeping up with community service? Are you putting it into an Excel spreadsheet? What are you doing with this?
I just put it in notes in my phone. I created a shared note with my son, and they were in Scouts, and so every time he did something, either I would enter it or he would enter it, and we would put the approximate hours. So,
Ultimately, you're responsible for that, so nobody's gonna be coming
Yeah.
behind you to go, wait, you're an hour too much or too less.
right.
So, I have problems bringing back to why, how am I gonna do this for 4 years?
I keep it on the transcript so that I have it really handy, and that's worked for me.
You mentioned courts. Are there multiple courts?
There are a lot of courts.
Is that online, so I don't check it?
Yeah, so it's consistent with every school, so there's a gold one that is correlated to, I don't know what they all represent, there's a gold one, and silver, like for the horse, there's one that's equestrian, there's one for, there's all these courts that they can participate in, and you can just Google, actually go to Jostens, and go to their website, and they'll have it, they'll probably, at the senior class meeting, they'll be talking about the courts, because you'll wanna order the courts, and have them for their graduation, and that's when you'll do it.
And if they get one for like National Honor Society or anything like that, they're allowed to get any extra
Yeah.
other ones.
And there's certain requirements, but that'll be talked about at the senior class meeting for certain colored cords. And then you can go online on the home ed website. We are steadily, just constantly trying to make improvements and add things. And I believe I've already got that out there on the website with the different colored cords. So
But there's some weird ones that like you go, wait a second.
Johnson's is who we order through. Yeah.
Where do we look to see what,
The colors.
yeah, and what
If you go to the home ed website, it's under like high school and graduation requirements. It's in the member area.
And I would look to see if your child is into archery or something like that. There's so many different cords, even more than we had at home ed when we had our graduation class. Some mothers came up and said, hey, I found this archery one, my child's in archery, can she wear that? Well, if she qualifies for it, then that's great. And then we made sure that in our program, we would have the corresponding color, so that when somebody saw she's wearing a burgundy cord, what does the burgundy cord stand for?
Yeah. And that's all optional. If they want to wear a cord, they can. If you don't want to order the cord, you don't have to.
Can you speak to the National Honor Society keep getting all these mail about, pay this much money, and how do you become a part of that?
I never did it because I just heard that it was a hoax. I just said it would get money, but somebody else may have, so I'm probably not the best person to ask that question of.
So I get it too, and I actually sent the money and did it.
I did it for my daughter, and there's a couple of different things that you'll get, like National Honor Society. I don't know I don't know how one from homeschool gets into National Honor Society. My daughter did it through the high school. But there's like the National Society of Honor Students that you guys will get stuff. And if it was like $100 or under, I did it. I just paid the money because it was something that I could put on my kids' transcripts. But then you'll also get stuff that's like for $3,500 or for $1,500. No, don't.
No, this was like the National Honor Society
Yeah, do that.
for kids, and it was only like $75 or
Yep,
something.
do it.
No, I do think
And they
there's one
sent
on
a full
educational lines
invitation with
too.
the
Yes,
thing,
yes,
with
you
like-
will.
too.
You'll get a full invitation.
I think
Spring did it.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what you wanna do. You'll get a cord for that.
So you can get a cord for that, or if they send it to you?
They'll send it to you.
Oh,
So
okay.
what kind of GPA do you need to be in the National Honor Society?
83.5.
That's what I'm saying.
I think Educational Alliance has some of that on their website too, and they will come out and start announcing on their website or their Facebook page who's been inducted into National Honor Society out of the homeschool students. And I think they have a little application process on there. I have to go back and look.
So you can, if I haven't gotten anything from them,
Oh, yeah, I found
I
it.
can go on their website and apply.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
What age
yes.
do you do that? What age students, what year do you get into?
Yeah, senior year is what we've seen most people do. I don't know if they've done it any younger.
Any earlier than that,
Yeah.
you don't need it until.
Well, well, we did it in our junior year because I wanted it on the application. And we started doing applications in our senior year. So I didn't want to wait for our senior year because I wanted it on our college transcript. So I would say junior year.
I'm saying, it's a separate standardized test.
area.
Sorry. 1 minute.
I think that's it. Anybody have any more questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Yes. That was awesome.